Welcome back to Switch Direct. Today we got a showcase of all of the bosses from Trials of Mana using a no healer team. That is using Hawkeye, Angela, and Reese. The main healers in Trials of Mana are Charlotte and Duran, depending on which class choice you go for Duran, but Charlotte can do healing regardless. A typical build uses one of these characters to do it, but I decided to do a playthrough with just these characters because I thought they looked cool, and I heard you could do it with only items for healing, and that's what we did. This is also played on hard mode. I've also put down the timestamps for all the bosses in the description, and if you prefer to watch the version with no commentary, I've released that as well, so you can see just the boss fights. But with no further ado, I'm just going to talk over this display of bosses and let you know what I was thinking as I went through. This was my first playthrough of the game, so I didn't have a huge history or knowledge of the game beforehand to plan for everything. I started off really heavily using Hawkeye here. This is the first boss, Fullmetal Hugger. He was pretty easy, just had to dodge a few things and use basic attacks. Really no big deal. This is where you're starting off, you only have your first two characters, and you get your first element out of this boss, Lumina. So, starting with the second boss, we'll be able to start using some magic. You'll see the progression of my characters as you watch this too. I at some point switched to basically just using Angela because I found that there is certain abilities you'll get that allow you to get mana back, but you really need to be controlling the character to make sure you get the most use out of that. And targeting with spells is best done by the player as well. So instead of just constantly switching over or choosing a menu and going to the other person, I just decided to really use my spellcaster, and then Hawkeye and Reese really became just melee support and, you know, people who could be targeted by the enemies while I casted spells and nuked everything down. It starts off pretty light for the casting, but you'll see by the end of this how I'm just basically blowing everything up with Angela. She's a real powerhouse. And I went down the light side for all the characters as well. This is the second boss, Machine Golem R. You fight two Machine Golems at once. We'll see these guys again later in the Machine Golem S fight with 3. But this is a pretty easy fight. At this point, I didn't quite realize an easy way to break the guard. You'll see how I was doing not very much damage to begin with. If you do a power attack, you can break that guard a little bit quicker. And that's what I was trying to do before I started casting spells, was to break the guard so I wouldn't be hidden for 0. Because hitting with spells doesn't really break the guard near as well as doing like power attacks or even class abilities. Like for Angela, it's the double slash. See, still at this stage, spellcasting, it's really not that strong yet. I basically use her mana pool really quickly, and then I try and switch to the other characters to use all of their specials to do as much damage as possible. Hawkeye right now is also probably my strongest, just normal melee fighter. You can see, if you're unfamiliar with the game, that they really telegraph most of their attacks, and aside from that death, you can, as the player, get past most of these if you're just paying attention and dodging it, whereas the AI tends to fall for it a lot more. This had made the game a little bit easier than the SNES one, but at the same time, I felt like this really, made the game feel a lot more fun, because in the SNES version, when they do special abilities, whatever they were targeting, that person would freeze. And so if he was targeting you, you'd just be stun locked. It was just really kind of annoying. Whereas this gives you an opportunity to use skill to get out of the move. Makes it a little bit more chaotic and fresh and fun. So that was a really nice thing about that change in this. So yeah, I'm just sort of, you know, hitting him with a few combos. It's not too complicated of a fight. Definitely had me moving on my feet, you know. It wasn't as trivial as the random encounters on the way up, you know, those small guys. But still not super challenging. It's a nice whiff by Angela over on the side there. And you see, I really haven't had to heal that much. That'll continue. You'll see as we go forward into these other boss fights how I get actually pretty close in some of them. But this was my first time at majority of them. Had I been prepared and, you know, maybe done a second attempt, and usually there's a save place right before a boss fight. So even if you had a failure, you're starting over right where you were at. You're not redoing a whole dungeon or anything like that. But it's really not too hard in these earlier stages, and by the very end of it, you're going to be so powerful that it's just, you know, you're just going to steamroll everything. Whereas I'd say probably the most challenging part of this game is in the middle, where you're not quite fully powerful and they start doing more damage. Jewel Eater is this next boss here, boss 3. Not a pretty easy guy. Following that same strategy as I did on the last boss, use all my mana, then go into using all the class abilities for everything. Right here, I'm just looking at using some items to do some more extra damage since I ran out of MP. You'll find these different random items just on the ground and through seeds that you plant at the end. At this point, I wasn't quite sure whether you could, what you could do with the multiple different parts for hitting guys. It seems, though, that really the hitting different parts, its only effect is if you have area effect stuff is great, because then you can hit them more than once per hit. So you want to target in the middle of them to try and get as much as possible. They didn't seem to have weaknesses where certain parts would get hit harder, but I could be wrong. Either way, it wasn't necessary to beat anyone. And I'm just testing these items out and seeing what I can do with them. Those items pretty much mimic the different elements, main spells as you go. Just kind of a heads up of what you'll get. So right there, I should have been a little bit quicker to go back to do my class strike, but at least I still got it in while he was dazed. They take extra damage during that time. So then maybe I could have gotten the class strikes in with all of the characters during that daze instead of just one more from Angela. Didn't do a very good job of dodging out of that one. But again, you know, it's not too big of a deal. I'm not doing a huge amount of healing during the dungeons, and the dungeons have full heals with the save spots, so it's not really bothering me at this point of the game at all to not have a dedicated healer. In fact, I think that in some cases it'd be a detriment if they're not doing damage, because you might as well have someone who's helping take out enemies quicker. At this point, I decided to just melee it down with Hawkeye to finish off. There we go, Julie, they're down. Harpy's up next, although they call it Harcypete, I guess. They have some funny names for the bosses in this. This is just after I got my first class change, so past level 18, which is the requirement, and I've gotten to my first mana stone. I do have a spell that this boss is weak to, Earth. They do a binary system where it's like, you know, if you're fire, then ice is strong against you, and if you're ice, fire is strong against you, and, you know, it's like back and forth. So this is a wind-earth setup. This is a wind creature, so earth works well against them. Since I went to Light Path with Angela, her actual final class 4 lets me get a locked ability that makes it so it ignores the majority of the resistances. So as you go through the game, you actually have a bit more. Now see, at this point, I don't know what I'm doing. I should have, you know, been in there and finished that off. I thought I was needing to just dodge an attack where I needed to focus fire on that. Fortunately, my teammates were smart enough to do that for me. Back to what I was saying, the elementals, mid-game you have more of a difficulty to making sure that you get the right one to get weaknesses and stuff. See, that time I kind of figured it out. Just focus fire on it. Those things are key in boss battles. These earlier boss battles, it didn't really matter as much. You can tell I was just sort of figuring it out, and it's like, what is this? Maybe I should go for it. Maybe I shouldn't. You know? But I had some real close calls later where I didn't focus fire them well enough, and then they unleash. Two things can happen, really. Either you can beat it, and then you just stop them from doing a big attack, or you beat it, and then they go into a phase where they're, you know, weak to damage. So it can either help you finish off the boss quickly, or it can make you avoid a huge attack. This was the first boss who actually gave me a little bit of trouble, and I say a little bit of trouble because I died, or got wiped out once. So, he's the sole one who did it. Had another boss who was close, but this was it. So this was actually my second attempt. All the other bosses you'll see in this are my first attempt on them. The key thing I figured out with this guy was that he'll spawn these extra ads, and my initial reaction was, oh, I should kill those first. Well, they just keep on coming back over and over again. You're better off just ignoring them. So I kind of just tired myself out, you know, ran through all my healing items, and eventually, you know, failed on him. Whereas my second attempt, I basically just ignore him, and that was much easier. Another thing I found was just sticking right close to the door was a lot, or the wall was a lot easier to avoid some of the traps and still be doing damage. Although with all that chaos, it can be kind of crowded in there. I also made sure I had pot of oils for this run. So this is a key thing that you'll definitely want to have without a healer, though. This is your pot of oils are a healing item that you can only get at night at the merchant's city. And they're the only healing item that heals everyone. So you have to stock up in the one city just to be able to do it. You can't get it anywhere else. and only at night. Otherwise, you're stuck to single target healing items. So, even if you have a healer, I would recommend getting them. But particularly if you have no healer, make sure you get stocked up on those. And they do get stronger too. As I get more health and spirit and stuff, they'll be healing for more. I'm not sure quite on the calculation for what causes them to heal more. I don't know if it's more intellect or more spirit or more health or more levels, but just over time they did heal for a lot more. Trying to get myself a pot of the class charge stuff. This is still at that point where I just don't have a lot of MP, and I'm not bothering with using the magic refill, which is the fairy walnuts, over and over again, just so that I can constantly be casting, because it's also this point of the game, my casting isn't doing huge amounts more than my attacks, which again will change by the end of it. At the very end of this game, I'm just going to be blasting away bosses. Probably be doing another run of this game with all melee just to see with this, because while I did do some melee, you know, at the first part of this game, as you can see, you know, by the end of it, I was only just casting, and that wasn't just bosses. Basically, I made it so it cost me almost nothing to cast spells, and then I would clear out whole groups of guys in one shot over and over and over again. So I'm hoping that maybe it'll be more interesting to do it that way. Not that it wasn't satisfying to be blasting away the enemies that way. If you do take Angela to your team, I do recommend going the light side. The big AoE and cheaper cost makes her just an absolute powerhouse. Right here, I'm finishing him off with using an item that gave Hawkeye a water element to do additional damage, hence the weakness when he attacks. This is pretty effective. You'll find them in the dungeon itself that does this, but you can buy those also at the black market. If I did this boss again, I'd probably have just stuck with melee, and because you're not going to have water elemental spells by this point, so it's not like you're going to have a weakness that way. And I would have bought some more of the water elemental plus damage for weapons items. That would have made that really trivial. Next we have Bil Ben. They came up right in the next room. These guys also, they were one of the few bosses that actually made you do something different. And that's, you know, right here they're together as one person, but they'll split up. And a mistake I made in this fight, in which I would do differently if I had fought them a second, you know, you will fight them a second time, is change my AI. So my AI right now is set to attack the weakest foe. Okay, so I figured that was the smartest move for clearing out things, because then they just group up on whoever is the lowest health to finish them off. Then if I'm even running around breaking guards on everyone, they'll be finishing off the lowest health person while I do that instead of just running all over the place. Well, this is going to be a problem for this guy, because after you get him down to a certain amount of health, he splits back into two. And if you don't kill both of them at the same time, then they res each other. And that's what we'll see in this fight too. So when you do this fight, I would recommend, if you have the same settings I did, to change your AI to attack who you're targeting. That way you can balance the damage easier. Because otherwise what was happening was my guys were focusing on the one who was already lower, and I had to you know, compete with them to be even faster, but I was able to pull it through. I suppose I could have also changed the AI mid battle, but I didn't do that. It was nice to have this extra level of strategy in the boss fight too. It's certainly not something that was seen throughout the rest of this game. You know, having to switch a strategy. Don't just kill off the weakest guy, get him down at the same time. Very basic in a lot of RPGs and stuff, but still, it'd been cool to see more, you know, challenging things like that. Here we have them in their split form. Have to go break their guards again. To this point, I really don't know about this whole trick that they'll res each other, so I'm just hitting whoever I can, trying to group them up as best I can. Doing my similar tactic at this point, which is use up mana, then use up class abilities for everyone. They really did keep this engaging, the whole combat throughout the game. I have to give them kudos for that. Even though it only, you know, took me a single try for these things, they were fun and interesting to do. I felt like I was actually doing something that mattered, you know. I saw them using a move, I had to dodge out of it. It's a really nice thing about this game. That was also kind of why I chose this setup too, is I thought, well, you know, if I'm choosing a character that's going to rely on using moves, I may make this game more interesting for me than someone who's relying on just melee, which I just spam the same stuff over and over on. But that turned out to be not quite the case by the end of it, where all I just did was spam the one spell over and over again, but that's beside the point. So maybe the next run will be more interesting. It's all melee. Reese and Hawkeye did turn out to be good buffers, though. I mean, Hawkeye really just, he ended up with a bunch of passive increases to everyone, and Reese got those too, but then she also had buff spells. Here I'm trying to check out which items I can use to just finish them off. I don't know why it's taking me so long to figure that out, but I guess I decided not to use them. Another thing I changed later in the AI that I didn't really have set there is to use healing spells at a much more rapid rate and for longer for my allies, so that I wouldn't be spending as much time in the inventory doing that, which I would recommend you guys doing. You can have 4 more, I think 99 of each item available, but then you can only use up to 9 of each individual item that's on your ring per given battle. So don't be shy about buying more than 9 and, you know, just using them as much as possible. I would reserve either 1 or 3. See, there he comes. I'm like, uh-oh. I better focus on this higher health one, or I'm going to be repeating this cycle and eventually running out. So if I'd been smart, the thing is you would wait until 1's down, and then you would use your saved up moves, class strike abilities all at once to focus down someone. Trying my best to just burn him down without dying. Getting a little reckless here, but trying to avoid the another res. It's getting close here. Doesn't quite show you a timer when they will res the other person, but I think I just squeaked by. That looked like it was going to be close. There's Bil Ben, first round. They'll be coming back here pretty soon. A few of the bosses have double appearances in this. Theirs is the most recent, you know. There's really just them, one other boss, then them again. Whereas others, you'll have to wait several bosses until you see them or until the final dungeon. Here's Goya, the ghost boss. This was great because I just gotten the more powerful version of the Holy Bolt, the Lucent Beam, and it does quite a bit of damage. So this is the beginnings of when I'm really using my magic to just blow up bosses. There I was trying to test and see what the damage difference was, see if it was, you know, worth the MP. And of course I wasn't paying attention and got killed. But it's okay. So, key part of these fights, you have to pay attention to what's going on or they'll do a lot of damage to you. For being such a silly animation of just a heart, that's a really powerful class strike ability. Right here, I didn't quite realize I should have been attacking that little thing on the ground. I was thinking I just had to avoid it. Don't know what I was thinking, but yeah. If you're playing this guy, attack that little thing. That's the target thing. And if I had, he would just take quite a bit more damage if you kill it in time. So I only have 3 of these fairy walnuts to restore mana, but this is where I'm going to actually really start using mana recovery stuff just to be able to keep on spamming for bosses. Also, the reason I only have 2 guys on my team right now is there's a story event where you have to keep one person back. I won't spoil the specific details, but you get to choose who it is. And I really just opted for Reese because she seemed to be doing the least for my party at the time. I was really heavily using Angela. In particular on this boat, there was a lot of undead, so she was doing a lot of damage with her Holy Bolt and Lucent Beam. And Hawkeye just seemed to be a little bit stronger as melee as my second. Again, I could have really been doing a lot more damage had I not just been running around like a fool and attacking that thing, so I could blow him up during the weakness. But at this point in the game, they don't really punish you super hard other than you didn't get a weakness stage. Later in the game, they'll punish you really hard if you don't attack those things. Enough damage to just possibly wipe out your whole team, if not several party members in one shot. So it's better to get used to using them now. Should have dodged there. I'd complain about the AI there, but I was just as well having problems with staying out of clearly places I shouldn't have been. But this is a part of learning the game too, and this is early in learning it. Right there, I was trying to use some power attacks to regain some MP. Really, I should have just used the mana recovery stuff and continued blasting instead of trying to conserve. I mean, I ultimately did anyways. Pays in this game to just be really aggressive. Here I was assuming I just couldn't reach him, so that's why I wasn't bothering to attack. Had him use a healing item instead of her, so she'd be ready to do a spell right away. And that did it. If I had spent my training points a little bit more wisely before this fight, I would have also been able to get a MP saver to reduce the cost of my spells. That would have helped quite a bit as well. But I'd eventually get that anyways. Next up, we have Bil Ben again. Now, a lot of people will actually fight these guys after my next boss because you have a choice between which place to go to. And they don't tell you, but the ice area where the other boss is lower level than this place. So I chose the wrong way by going this way. Made it a little bit harder by having higher level area, but it was still really doable. It is not that big of a deal to do the desert first instead of the ice place. Bil and Ben for their second encounter do basically the same thing. But by now I've learned what I'm supposed to be doing quite a bit better. I've set my AI to attack the lowest health character and just keep on spamming the big spell. Hardly any point in using my other stuff with just how much damage it is. I guess I was trying to conserve mana. I don't know. Should have just been spamming. I learned later to just spam. By now, some of the other guys have some other spells too. I never really did focused on them, but I'm curious though if you did, how strong you could be. Like, could I make Hawkeye a full caster? You know, maybe. Since they're close together, trying to do the Holy Bolt so I could hit both of them. It's a little bit more efficient when I can. Again, saving by not, using Fairy Walnuts, because I'm low on mana. Doing this, if I did this again, I would suggest just buy more Fairy Walnuts. Keep on spamming your big spells. Finish them off faster. But I really didn't know that as well at this point in the game. Trying to balance the damage here. I do have it set so they attack where I'm attacking. So even at this stage, I'm taking quite a bit more damage than I was in the first couple bosses, but healing items do the trick. Still don't really need a dedicated healer. I mean, I could probably have a much more optimized team. And even with, you know, me standing in that AoE like that and two guys getting wiped out, it's just full heal with my res item, which you're going to get tons of these as you explore levels too. I'm not sure if I ever bought any of them. They were just, I found so many of them throughout my playthrough that it wasn't even a bother. See, even my allies were like, just use a fairy walnut. Spam with your big spells so we can get this over with. Come on, guys. It's okay, I eventually learned how to do this. It would have been nice if these guys did more, aside from just being, you know, higher level and stronger. But it was still a fun fight. Whole game was fun. Almost done with him. Come on, Bill, die. Here I'm being just a little too careful with getting them even health and taking them down at the same time. I mean, it wasn't that short of time before. But either way, I got him. And there's a full health save thing nearby to recover. So now these guys are going to be quite a bit easier because you can see they're level 27 and Bil and Ben were level 30. So I'm actually higher health. Here, right now, I'm just checking to see what their weaknesses are. So the nice thing in this game is each time you select, let's see, that one said no effect. You select with a spell, it'll tell you before you even cast it what it's going to be like. Now, granted, it didn't do much damage because their guard was up, so I'm going to have to take that down. But once I do, I know which spells they're going to be weak to and which they're not. Decided to go with Holy Bolt because, or Holy Bolt Plus, because it's, you know, it has a bigger AoE than my other one, and so it'll be more mana efficient, hitting multiple people. These are essentially the same fight as the earlier ones, Machine Golem R, just with 3 of them instead of 2. Again, their repeat fights are fine. It just would be nice if they added more strategy elements. this point in the game, I also thought that using a class strike ability was the best way to getting rid of those guards. And while it is really effective, I would suggest just using a power hit that usually does it right away. And then you can use your class strike with the guard down and do more damage. It's just cleanup mode. These guys were pretty easy overall. I mean, I did take a huge amount of damage in there. Dude, my characters died. So it's not like you do nothing and you just steamroll them. You actually have to participate in the battle. You're doing a lot more than your teammates because they just stay in the AoEs over and over and over again. This is where it would be really nice to have co-op like the original, you know? Have a friend control one of your guys. They'd be so much stronger. So much better at it. Just going for the finish. Lucent beam to the win. Or for the win. I'm like, what's he doing? Oh yeah, exploding. And down they go. Never to be seen again. And next up we have Beast Ludgar. This boss would have been a little bit more interesting story-wise had I chose Kevin for my party, because he has a close tie to this character. You know, sort of a blood feud thing. But still interesting boss fight. Checking out, see which vulnerabilities he has. Doesn't look like anything is strong or weak that I have, so it's really just use the strongest spell.
I figured you weren't the type. Oh well, I do still owe you for that lovely present. Hey, Jack.
I really do like the fact that you can dodge the moves in this game. You can't say that enough. The stun locking was so annoying in Secret of Mana and Second in Setsu 3, or the original Trials of Mana. This made it so it was never annoying to play, even though it was close in some of these fights with, you know, me not dodging properly. I always felt like it was me who needed to do the dodging more, and not complaining about the game being unfair or annoying. Here I'm just, I guess, trying out items, seeing if it's any good. And of course I miss. It's funny watching back. I'm like, why didn't I capitalize on him being weak there much better? You know, I sort of roam around a little bit. I could have just been blasting. this stage of the game, you're focused on trying to collect all the elementals, so slowly getting more and more stuff to unlock to use. But despite that, I found myself really just Lumina as the carrier of the team for a huge part of this game. And maybe if I had gone down the dark path, there had been some other element that I'd really want to focus on, but it just works so great. And it looks pretty cool, so that's also a bonus. Beast Slug, guard down. Grapplavine. I love the art style on this guy. This really reminds me of a secret of a mana boss that you see a few times once he gets his head out.
Or, well, maybe you should worry.
Here I'm trying to figure out what's the deal with the different targeting. Should I target a certain place or not? In addition to figuring out, again, is there any weaknesses I should be looking at? If they're a weakness or strong or for a different body part and stuff like that. I think what I find is, again, there's no strengths or weaknesses to the elements I have. So I might as well just blast them with the strongest spells I got.
But this is a monster.
Now, though, since he has multiple parts, if I time or aim the spells right, I actually could do quite a bit more damage. Get to the middle, and then you can hit multiple parts. Looking back at this video too, I can also see the legs seem to take less damage than the body. So probably a more optimal thing would be to target the center of the body with a big AoE. Then you do the most damage always to the body, and then maybe a little bit of extra damage to the other things that can be hit too. Later there's another version of this grass guy that... See how that was poorly timed. It was changing shape, so you took 0 damage from my big move. Oh well. I love that graphical art style of this guy. Here I realize that the head is just taking a lot more damage, so instead of just hitting the quick button R and the spell, I'm trying to cast specifically on the head.
Wait a second. Why are these seats? Bob! We don't have time for this.
With just the quick target, it's just going to be whatever is the closest target is going to be hit instead of a specific target.
This should do it.
I haven't her heals, so I can focus on casting. But she didn't seem to do it, so I'm sure I'm gonna... You always have to be mindful of where you're standing when you're casting too. These earlier spells, like the ones we're seeing, are quick enough that for the most part it doesn't even really matter. You know, you're gonna be able to finish your cast and then move, or just take the damage and go. But there's some bigger spells you can get that just have huge casting times that they'll actually interrupt you and you won't be able to get off without without being properly placed. learning my lesson to just use the fairy mana. Of course, I waited long enough so that my teammate used one at the same time.
Sorry about that.
Here I'm testing to see if the neck takes more damage, and it definitely didn't. So just going for the head. I know earlier in the video I was questioning whether you could do more damage to different parts, and I guess this answer it for some of these bosses.
Sorry about that.
Although I generally didn't have to worry too much about that. Alright, let's finish him off. One more.
That stings.
You got it. Boom. Sure, with a more aggressive playstyle, I could have made this fight go a little bit faster. But this was my first go at this game, so thank you for bearing with me. So after this, we get into the next phase of the game where it really opens up. Or actually, I suppose even with that Grapplavine, it's really opened up at this point. These are just elementals that we have to beat. So really, it's just travel the world in any order and beat the elementals you want. I think that Grapplavine was the first one. And this is where you could actually already start becoming class 3, but you have to find a random item. They do appear in some chests in these dungeons, but they also are random drops from enemies at this point. And the annoying thing is, so you'll have 2 class 3 choices for each character, which means in order to make sure you have all the choices you need to get 6 of these because each of them is random. Although for the first 6, they don't repeat each other, which is nice. So you can just make sure you get 6 of these and then go to the class change, and then you can change everyone. I'm just sort of going through the dungeons at this point thinking, well, I'll eventually get them, and each time I finish a dungeon, I'm checking, and so far I haven't found the classes I actually even really wanted. And I also wanted to be able to get both class options just so I could first double check the skills and training and stuff, abilities that you can get with the different classes, so I can make a better decision as to what I think is going to be best. So what I would recommend doing at this stage of the game, if you're new, is go into each dungeon, clear up to the boss, then leave. Getting each of the class items, so you get, it's 3 question mark seeds is what they are. Get 6 of those, then do your class change, then mop up the bosses. And that's essentially what I'll be doing here. So I still power through this boss as class 2 for everyone, and I'll be doing the same for the next boss too. But then I take a quick intermission and I get all the class items and go up to class 3 for everyone, and you'll see everything just becomes significantly easier. At this point, it's still a little bit of a struggle because also I'm holding off on using my training points, which I think was a mistake, because you can always just reassign your training points after you've done a class upgrade. Because my thought was, once I have that class upgrade, I'll want to choose a specific path based on what's available. I might not want, you know, all of them dumped into a specific place. But you can just go to the black market in the merchant town and redo all those. So I really should have just used those points. So I was, in a way, sort of under-leveling myself by not doing that. It's okay. This guy was still pretty manageable. I at least had a spell that he was weak to. I kind of figured that just because I was like, okay, I'll make sure I get enough points in intellect so that I can have Shiva spells, since I'm going to go into a fire dungeon. My next place, though, is I went to wind, and I didn't have a good earth spell. I didn't have like the second tier earth spells. And so it's going to end up being a pretty long and sloppy fight where you'll see, I guess. But Angela is going to be carrying the whole thing after everyone dies. It's also where I learned the importance of focusing down the target when it appears. It's okay though. This one still is pretty manageable. Just takes a little while. I mean, only doing 134 with that spell is pretty weak, but keeps it going, I guess. Here again, I'm not really realizing, oh yeah, I should take these out. And see, spells, they don't do a great job at it. You're much better off doing a combo. Better yet, I found using a class strike really helps to finish these off. But if not, if you don't have class strikes available, use your attack combos to do them. Spells don't generally do a really good job of removing them. In this case, I was kind of lucky. I was able to have a place where I could kind of hide, and most of my characters would survive that. Although I'm noticing my diminishing healing items or res items. At this point, I only have 4, and he only has half health, so I have to be a little bit more on spot with these. I would have been really smart to use my class strike to finish these off earlier. And I barely do it that time.
Watch your footing.
So in this case, I avoided a big attack, and I made him weak. Really important, particularly when things are getting a little bit closer. I don't think it would have been as close for this if I would have been class 3. Class 3 added a huge jump in my damage. And this is probably, this and then the next boss is probably the peak of the difficulty I had in bosses. And then it was just downhill. And then the last boss, or maybe the second to last boss, the last boss for the last chapter, he was just, I just spammed spells so he blew up in an instant. And it was like a joke compared to these boss battles with this lower power level. But this is also where it was like thinking, okay, maybe I do need to do this, and hopefully I didn't make a big mistake by not having a healer. Really don't want to have to redo the whole game at this point just to progress, but I managed through. And we're about wrapped up. There you go, Xan Bie. Done for. No. Mispolm. Oh, no, no. Yeah, I was thinking the wrong order of these bosses. So, this one, yeah, I still don't have my class 3. I wait at least one more boss before. This one was still a bit of a struggle. I think I had a little bit easier time than I did with Xan Bie, but not as hard a time as I think it's the next boss coming up. Again, I'm trying to figure out what spells I should be using. What I later find out, and it takes me a bit to realize, is that I really should use Lucent Beam on those big towers of guys, because sorry for those pause screens. I was just accidentally hitting that button. What I later find out is, oh, see, each of those towers of guys you can hit several times. Well, the Lucent Beam goes straight up and down. That hits all of them. I was thinking, okay, this is great with the Holy Bolt Plus, but Lucent Beam would have been much better. Although this, just watching this makes me think, you know, if you really want a big challenge for this game, doing this as a class 2 only, never going into class 3 and then beating the game, now that would be a big challenge. Or even harder, beat the game at class 1 only. Let's see someone do that. I'm sure someone could. It'd just be painful or slow. Here I think I'm finding that this Holy Bolt Plus is a relatively efficient way of doing damage. I'm hitting multiple things. Not the biggest spell, but pretty efficient. I love the graphical style of this boss too. The cool pumpkin face. Just so great to look at. If I'd been playing this more smart, I'd be also dodging those whips instead of just taking the brunt of that. I guess that's the other thing about this game is you really, you know, even though they give you that ability, it's still easy enough. You don't really need to do everything you're supposed to do. Because this is the big difference between something like this and a Dark Souls is to really beat Dark Souls, you have to you can only miss a dodge so many times. Here, you can just keep on missing the dodges over and over again. Oh, I guess I was wrong with the Lucent Beam. I thought those were going to hit multiple things in the column. I'm not sure why I was thinking that. I mean, it was still good damage, but... I'd say that's a little bit better. Here we get really close. Almost got me, boss. These full heal res items are pretty convenient. Yeah. Yeah, the Holy Bolt by itself is much better. I guess I remembered that wrong. For some reason, I was remembering that the Lucent Beam on there was a good move, but in reality, it was better just to use a Holy Bolt Plus on those towers. Here I'm finally dodging because I'm running out of healing items. Like, I have to actually try. Still got plenty of magic items though, and they're pretty generous with the dodge timing too. By now, I think he's pretty much used all of his big stuff. I think it's just follow the pattern until it finishes. I guess I was wrong. We have one more set of towers that we're going to deal with. He is close to dead, though. I suppose could decide to just try and finish him off, but I went with the safer route. Yeah, see that? Well placed Holy Bolt. Super effective. Still essentially at the peak of the difficulty, with, if I remember right, the next boss being the hardest struggle. Although this one was a pretty big mess and struggle too. As you can see, I'm getting close and running out on everything. No more rezzing of anyone. Let's actually finish this off. Here we go. Fortunately, even the people who died get experience for the battles, so Reese was good. Again, I would, by this stage of the game, I would suggest going and getting all your class 3, then wrapping up the dungeons, which I did not do. Now here's the one that Angela has to eventually fight all on her own. Poor Angela. She did so good, though. It's kind of a cool concept for a battle. You know, use your flying guy instead of just being on the ground. Not that it plays much differently. I mean, you really just have your platform that you're on, and it's sort of static, and then the boss comes and goes. Not too dissimilar to other ones, but looks cool. This is also where I really figure out the importance in the battle about the targeted areas and what I should do. Like, I should right now be focusing on taking that thing out, and I'm just dinking around. Well, I'm checking to see what the element weaknesses are, I guess, but I should use a class strike over there and then, you know, take him out so that his big move is taken care of. Because what's going to happen here in this fight is I'm going to be dealing with a situation where I run out of healing items because my other guys are going to just die to those big attacks. And so that first one, it's like, fine, okay, I used that, but I could have used double slash. That seemed to do, double slash, the first one seems to be just as effective at taking out barriers or those focus points. And then you get, you know, to keep more of your CP for more of them. But it's this earlier one where I'm like, okay, that first one I was smart and I or semi-smart and I took it out. This next one, like, whatever, you know, I'll target the other head for a bit, and then, oh geez, everyone gets clobbered. And then my dodge right into the attack. And then a double res on someone, so wasted res item. It's not a good start. It's okay. We'd still pull through. Spoilers. Spoilers, I win all the fights. The double slash is just about all you really need to do it. That and a combo, you know. But because I wasted that heart earlier, now I have no CP, where I would have had some left. Again, I'm being silly because I'm just spamming my one spell, and I should be going over there and taking out that target. So I just ended up getting clobbered. So this is a very badly done fight. Should be able to do much better when you play this. If you learn from my mistakes. I'm slowly figuring out though. Again, you know, I don't have the class strike anymore. I should have switched to someone else who did. Another thing is, you don't want to just do your normal attacks. You want to use a power attack and a combo. That's going to be much more effective. And because of my mistake, both my teammates died. See, again, if I just switch to Hawkeye or Reese and do a class strike, I would have a better shot. I do that, but I do it late, you know? This is where I think the boss battles are the strongest, is forcing you to dodge a series of predictable attacks and focus on specific things. You know, play smart, not just do your typical blast it with the best spells. Another good thing would be if I had a character with debuffing, because you can see the boss has buffs up. You know, remove those. Reese can be either a buffer or a debuffer. If you go the dark path, she's a debuffer. With a light path, she's a buffer. At this point, I'm just like, okay, well, try and cast some spells because I'm not going to get that thing down in time, but that's still a mistake. I should just, if I'd been doing combos instead of just the normal attacks, I might be able to get those down faster. And now I'm on my last res. But he's going to waste that. overall, sloppy fight. Sorry you have to endure. Thank you for watching and continue to watch. That attack is pretty easy to dodge, but unlike the other ones, you don't really you don't see the red mark because of being on the flying guy. But it's pretty easy to figure out. See, the magic spells really don't do much to lower the weakness point. But at this point, I'm not sure what I'm thinking. Other than maybe I can just out DPS him and dodge through things. I was seriously rethinking my class choice by this point, thinking, wow, did I make a big mistake? I mean, really, looking back, I was misplaying this guy. And also, I was misplaying the game in that I could have been Class 3. But, I was also finally challenged by something, too. And this was making me think, oh, hey, I gotta actually pay attention to this game and its mechanics if I want to do well. Which I'm still not doing at this point in the boss fight, but it lets me squeeze on by. I think there's other bosses that if I hadn't learned my lesson on this one, would have been much harder for me. Although this fight, I really didn't learn all my lessons. It let me squeak by. It did make me actually wise up and build my character stronger. See, here I'm saying, oh, hey, I can just do my class strike ability. Oh, and he's weakened. That's a nice thing to do. And I just avoided a big attack. Maybe I can do this. So on my last ropes, with only one character, running out of healing items, I finally figure out, hey, I'm supposed to dodge these moves. I'm supposed to take down those focus things, and then this guy's easier. And then I can solo him. I'm sure if I actually had died to this guy after reaching this point and figuring these things out about him, I would have been able to do much better for a second round. that double slash again. Barely squeaking by on this guy. Come on, Angela, you can do it. This was the last fight. It would make you rethink the strategy I did, which was the no healer and what teams could crush. But please let me reassure you that my battles go much better after this one. This is actually my hardest fought battle, I would say. I think this is where we're going to finish him off. And we got him. Longest, hardest fought boss fight. And we're about halfway through all the bosses. The rest of them are going to go quicker and quicker. And here you can see I am got my cool outfits. So up to class 3 on everyone. Going went light side route again for them, so light.
Time to take out the Belladonna of light, I guess.
Now also got some reset up to actually give me the team full buffs. At this point, she gets the ability that makes it so her stat boost lasts the entire battle, or until someone dies, so that's pretty nice. Here I'm trying to cast a really slow spell. The glitter one. Oops, don't want to do that. That heals him. I have this spell called Glitter Dust at this point. It's not an elemental, and it's really slow and powerful. I still use it a couple times, but it's just too slow. So I end up having to use my weaker Shade spell, which he's weak to. I don't have like the level 2 version. Because my other glitter one, even though it's strong, is just missing too much and taking too long to get casts off. So I'm just much better off DPS-wise to use the Shade. You can see there's the glitter. You can see it now finally. Does decent damage, but it's just so slow. I find I'm wasting my time doing that. Here I finally, learn my lesson from the last one. Make sure you use your class strike abilities to get those weak points. wasted too much time doing the glitter dust. I should have used something else while he was weak. Didn't even get hit with the last part. Getting some more CP points, so I'm ready in case there's another weakness. Just using Shade is, I think, really the way to go here for me. And it's pretty decent damage. Especially since, you know, the glitter dust, like if you factor in all that cast time, like you cast in the Shade twice in there, and it's less likely to miss. So I still try and end up using it a few times just because I think it's cool looking. There, I waste a whole bunch of time running around. Looking at this now, it appears he he used a saber move on my guys to make it so he absorbs my damage. I didn't really even notice because he was just getting healed by my stuff. I don't actually have any saber spells on my guys. I have some saber items I could use, but so I can't really dispel it with my own thing anyway, so it's a good thing I had a caster to do all the damage. But either way, since I have the class 3 at this point, and I'm a little bit better prepared figuring out what I'm doing. Overall, this is, even though I could have done this one still a lot better, you know, had the level 2 Shade spell unlocked, just spam Shade on him, and quicker to these things. But still much easier than that last boss fight. It's only going to go downhill from there. Again, I don't know why I'm focusing on using Glitter Dust. Glitter Dust, though, is really useful as you're clearing the dungeons, because there's going to be these guys that are just resistant to whatever you got, and that there's no one who has a resistance to Glitter Dust. And as long as you can get it off, it'll just do massive damage to everyone. And down we go. Getting stronger as we go. Dolan. Dolan I barely remember. I think he goes down like a hard rock. I'm just getting stronger and stronger and better at this, and making sure I get my buffs up. Checking, or getting all the buffs up. I think I'll be checking to see what's the strongest again. Looks really cool. Love the art style on this. Yeah, so check in to see what elements I can do. I don't think I have anything that's weak or strong. Okay, Glitter Dust is okay choice. It's just so slow. At least this guy doesn't move a whole bunch, unlike the last one, but still leaves you open to attack, and you can get multiple of the other ones in. I think I just settled on glitter dust for this fight. Even for not being a melee fighter, the class strike abilities are still pretty strong on the caster. It just makes me wonder if I had gone like a full melee character, how much damage I could be doing that way. I've heard a lot that Kevin is an absolute powerhouse. But a double slash takes most of it away. Combo. Didn't really have too much struggle here. Probably would have been faster if I used one of the other elemental spells that cast faster and just casted it more often than the glitter one, even if it was for less damage. But he went down pretty easily. Just, you know, what we'll be saying with these powered up guys. By now too, it's like what you aren't seeing because you're only seeing the boss fights is I'm just wrecking the dungeons, clearing out so quickly because of the big AoE spells that Angela has. I already know I don't have any wind spells, which I'm assuming he'll be weak to, so I'm just going straight to the glitter dust. Another cool elemental looking boss. Earth. Land Umber. He's about to meet his match. Say though, as strong as glitter dust is, it's just why use it when I can use something that's much faster. I'm thinking that's when I switch up to starting using Lumina Plus. See, it's like twice, 2 casts of that per. And yet I still go back to that. Just a sucker for the big spell cast. The Magus route, Dark for Angela, gets a Ancient Curse spell, which is actually a meteor. And see, that's what happens too with the glitter. You can get interrupted, and then you just don't do damage at all. Should have been quicker with that, but I think I still make it in time. Oh no, I missed it. At least I learned to use the Lumina Plus on the arms. Make much shorter work this time. It's not even that much less damage, and it's cheaper. And I can do basically 2 casts for the single of the other one. If I did this again, I would just be ignoring that glitter dust spell for this. At this point in the game, too, I have 2 magic point saver things, so everything is really cheap for me, and it's really not a problem to keep on spamming. As you can tell, I haven't used any fairy walnuts, and I've been casting the whole time. So it's a big change for how you play the characters by this point. You really get to use your cast characters to just constantly cast. Probably could have done this earlier to finish him off faster, but why not as the coup de grace? Bye-bye, Lord Umber. And up next is Fiegmund. This one I remember. He did drop like a rock. By now, this one I actually had the good element for him, the fire level 2 AoE, and he gets hit by it several times. So I'm not wasting my time with a slow cast spell, and he's got a spell that he's weak to that is quick.
About that icicle. Better get rid of it, just in case.
These guys, these targeted things, you still want to use melee attacks instead of spells on. It just seems to do much more effect on lowering that bar. But I'm not sure if having a melee character who does more damage would be more effective on him. But it seemed fast enough with the caster. And then I'm just destroying him with the spells. It's like this for the whole dungeon too. It's the nice thing about being prepared with the correct 2nd level spell. You know, those last few bosses, if I had had the 2nd level spell that they're weak to, I probably would have wrecked them much faster. But it's hard to have enough training points to have all the different spells because you have to be deep into each one. So you could, if you really wanted to, retrain for every one of these dungeons, but I don't think that's really necessary. If you just time out which ones you do in what order, leaving the hardest ones for the ones that you will be that'll be weak to you, or try and level up so that you line it up with you having the 2nd levels of the spells before you get to the element that you're going against. And you should be fine as well. But this is just night and day compared to the wind guy. But I'm actually buffing all my guys, have the appropriate spells, I'm attacking the weak points. I did miss that last one, but it wasn't enough. I'm doing just huge amounts of damage very quickly. Bye-bye, Fiegmund. All right, Zable Fahr. So now this works out really well. So with Hawkeye's path, you end up fighting these dark affinity guys, and my best spells is really actually my light affinity, the Lumina. So this guy's pretty easy for that. Looks cool too.
You hid yourself pretty well, huh? Thing is, the world is counting on us to get rid of things like you. No hard feelings.
And one hit down. Not that that's the end of the fight to destroy these heads, but still, like, it's just ridiculous how quickly and how much damage I'm doing with the proper preparation compared to that earlier stuff with the wind guy. I bet if I had had Earthquake, which is the second level Earth spell, it would have been much easier. But this is the point of the game where there's that huge shift in power to having a caster that I'm not sure you get that same level of power as melee or not. I'm going to be really interested with my melee character run to see. Also, this is a point of deviation from the different characters, so you may see other all-boss runs, but depending on who your main character is, you're going to get a different final set of boss battles and the final dungeons for this section of the game. It would be nice if my guys were a little bit quicker to punch on those. But see, if this point of the game, if you don't pay attention to them, it can really wipe you out. In each of these dungeons, too, you're going to get an amulet that halves the elemental damage that is done in there. So you only get one of them, though. And I just used the character, put it on the character I'm using. So, like, that's part of why Angela actually survived there, is she had half dark damage. So when you're going through this, make sure you do something, Sailor, whoever you really need to survive, make sure they get the elemental resistance amulet or ring from the dungeon that you're in. So if you make a mistake and don't actually beat the weakness thing, then you can survive it. I'm not sure why I'm bothering with glitter dust right there, but oh well. Actually used a fairy dust for the first time in a while. It actually, I think, I'm not sure if it was maybe class 4 that I got another MP saver that really reduced the cost to the point where it didn't even matter anymore. That time I was right on it. I wasn't, spending time doing healing spells or healing items, I should say, at the beginning of the weakness phase, and I had plenty of time. And bye-bye, Zable Fahr. Freaky floaty heads. Bye-bye. Next up, we have the vampire. Again, a nemesis on the hawkeye path I have to deal with that I sort of look out with being really strong with light.
You want this world to become the new Mavolia? How dare you make Snowball and Laurent up in your schemes? I won't let you get away with this.
As though we need some human usurper's permission. Resist if you must, but you will not win.
You know?
I was trying to break his guard, but I didn't notice that it had already been broken.
He is kind of the rawest thing. I wouldn't underestimate.
Here's again me trying to use the glitter dust just because it's so powerful, but I probably would have been much better off just using the luminous spell on repeat. Just so much easier to hit with those faster tier 2 spells.
Strange about that ghost. What's going on?
These ones aren't as detrimental as that last. It did a huge chunk of healing. If I hadn't gotten the other two, I guess it would have gotten him to full health again, but that last boss, it basically wiped out my characters, except for the one who had that extra dark resistance. But still, I have to make sure I focus on those. A good, well placed class strike one though. And you can get rid of those things quickly. See, I'm wising up again and just spamming that Lumina. He isn't weak to it, but it's so quick and so powerful. You can just cast it so many times. It's less likely to just dodge or miss out of it, and your just overall damage is higher. Malocchio, I think is how you pronounce them. Probably didn't need to use that fairy wall not there, but oops, nice biff. Fortunately, these ones aren't as critical as the other boss, just like before. Yeah, he got some healing, but I do so much damage to him, it's not the end of the world. There he goes. Down and out. Oh, but it is happening. Bye-bye. Woo. Now we're in a dark palace, and we have a couple repeat boss fights from the beginning of the game. So this is Fullmetal Hugger, a second time. Just checking out the weaknesses. It should be obvious that Evil Gate is the way to go, but I think I just go with Glitter again. Just because I don't have the rank 2 version of the Shade spell. But again, I probably would have been better off just using the Evil Gate Plus over and over again here. There, I think I wise up and start doing that. Though I need to be targeting his face or back so I can get the AoE to hit more of his weak spots and stuff. There we go. I could be just targeting his center point instead of having to reorient my character, but it's more convenient to not have to go through those menus and choose the shortcuts with the correct positioning. In the end, Metal Hugger, now that I'm all beefed up, isn't much different than, or more difficult than Metal Hugger at the very beginning when I just started. Soon though too, at this point, I'll be getting my class 4. But that'll only be for the last 2 bosses on this. There's a huge dungeon you do as class 4. It takes several hours to go through. But there's only the final boss and then the last secret hidden boss that you do as class 4. I suppose the part of my team is class 4 during the individual boss battles that are used to obtain class 4 items, but those runs are not too challenging. Bye-bye, metal. And here we got the wall again. This time I'm well prepared for his shenanigans. And to make things better, I even have the rank 2 ice. So set that to a hotkey and get to spamming. About 1,000 damage a cast for 3 quick casts. All you have to do is not get hit by those stupid traps, and this will be an easy win. Again, just gonna try to ignore those extra guys. They kind of get in the way and get hit by splash damage, but every time you get them low health, the reason you want to avoid them is every time they get low health, they just switch forms into another different enemy. So it's, you're never really getting rid of them. At least I don't think so. I mean, I never was. And like I said, that one failed boss fight on the first version of this guy, I died because I kept on trying to just kill them instead of just focusing on him. It is an interesting concept of a boss. A demon wall that's like casting a bunch of traps and stuff. In Secret of Mana, they had these walls that you had to fight that would slowly push forward and then eventually crush you if you didn't beat them in time. So there's like a time element to it. I did really like the art on this guy too. I think he was really cool looking. The holiday traps and the knocking around was really annoying though, I will say that. That was reminiscent of the stun locking that I would see in the SNES games. It's like so many traps in so many places. And my allies bringing traps to me. Reminds me of my World of Warcraft days where someone wasn't paying attention to the boss fight and would kill their other teammates by bringing a effect over to them. Here I'm trying to use my class strike abilities. Sorry for clearing my throat. See if I can't finish him off. Even if you're really doing most of the damage as one character, this is where it's nice to have the other characters because they're getting targeted by a lot of these things, so you can spend more time just casting. I mean, part of me wants to say that Reese and Hawkeye were useless during this run, but really, that was probably their biggest bonus, was they were drawing fire so I could keep on casting. Aside from lots of passive bonuses. Here we got Harpy version 2. At this point I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to be refighting all the bosses in the game? But this is the last of the repeat boss battles. So even Hawkeye called it out. Yeah, we were strong enough to defeat it then too. I don't have the second rank Earth spell, so I just decided to go with the glitter dust on this one. I still probably could have, you know, done a more overall DPS by doing Lumina, I think, but glitter dust did the trick. I mean, you can already see that. I also should have focused on the weakness a little bit quicker there. That's the problem with using those long cast spells, is, you know, I was starting that cast and I couldn't cancel out of it to focus on the other thing. This time I'm more prepared and did my double slash. It's not quite enough to do it on its own, but my teammates were smarter and got it quicker. It helped me. Either way, I got through it. At least smart enough not to do glitter dust when he was weak and use my class strike too. There we go. Now that's the smart move. Use Lumina. Trying to coach myself after the fact on this. Say I should have switched to one of the other characters to force them into doing a their class strike abilities. Instead, they were just running back and forth, not sure what they should do. I think I'm just like, whatever. I'll stay on the edge and finish her. Bye-bye, Harpy. And Belladonna, the lady who's been terrorizing Hawkeye all along. But she's a werewolf? Huh? Not sure why that's the case, but you'd think the werewolf thing would be tied to like the Kevin side of things, but either way, she's gonna get wrecked. I think I assumed that she'd be weak to light, but she really wasn't. It looks like it's ice for her. But again, this is the nice thing, is it just tells you. In the SNES games, you'd have to do like an analyze and secret a mana to check, or you just have to do trial and error. This, she actually has 2 weaknesses, which is weird. But I decided to go with the Earthquake, because I actually have it a little late. You know, it would have been nice to have that for that last Harpy boss, because she'd been weak to that. But it's okay that it was easy enough to beat her anyways. But Earthquake is just so quick of a cast, which is why I settled on using it. Again, I'm just like cringing at myself for not like, you know, for keeping casting spells during those periods of like the focus target thing, when I know it's, you know, it's not really weak to spells. You need to use your attacks.
Watch out! Belladonna is building up some sort of strange evil power. Gotta stop her before it's too late.
But I make quick work of her, so that's good. I mean, it's still a little bit of tumble, but I mean, if you compare this to how everything was at that one win boss, it's like so trivial compared to it. Here she has her sort of, I need to attack her phase with moving around, which is kind of obnoxious. Really gives a close call here. Because I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it in time. But I do. But it was just that weird jumping around during it that just made it really hard to finish off. Oh well, she's gone. Bye bye, Belladonna. Oh, and here's the final main boss as the Hawkeye story. At this point in the game, they don't do this the same binary stuff. You know, if he absorbs fire, why isn't he, you know, weak to ice? But I think I just decide I'll do my hotkeys for Lumina because it's quick. Start, of course, with the class trick ability. Might as well, because you'll be gaining some more of that as you go. Although I suppose the smart move is to save some of it for you know, those periods where you have to focus fire on something. But I mean, look at his health. He's already like
Don't keep me waiting.
half health. Granted, he's gonna transform, go Mega Mode or whatever. Sorry, Dark Prince. Even with your full heal, you're not going to be strong enough to withstand Angela and her crazy casting. After this is the new chapter. So if you're trying to avoid those spoilers, be warned. It's really just some bosses though that are specific to each character. To get your class 4 item, then the final boss, then the final secret hidden boss. So I really should be just using Lumina again. That's the problem with the AI sometimes, so switch targets when it doesn't make sense. But I still got them quick enough. Similar to the Zable Fahr boss, where you have the resummoning 2 side parts, and you just keep on rebeating them, or like land Umber. None of the bosses really have that crazy of strategies. It's just get stronger than them and blow them up. Pay attention to the things to dodge. Focus fire the things that need to be focus fired. Even if the strategies were simple enough that, like, once you learn it, you know it, and it trivializes it, I think that really adds some interest to the game, you know? Oh, I have to redo this a couple times as I figure out what it is the secret to beating him, you know? These extra little things, you know, focusing on that is nice enough, but it's just not very strategic. It's just go towards the focus thing. Looks like I wasn't fast enough. That's okay. I really didn't do that much damage. Oops, I spoke too soon. Another close call. I was like seeing those 15s pop up, and I was like, wow, I remember that being scarier than before. Yeah, there was something more scary. Those combos are the key. Boom. Now on to the individual class battles. Bye bye, Archdemon. We really did appreciate this like next chapter of the game too, because it's like you finally get all beefed up, and then you need something to do with it, and that's what this dungeon did for you. This is the hardest of them for sure, because for Angela it's a one-on-one battle, and so you don't have that same opportunity to have your guys be targeted while you just spam spells as Angela. This is why I have here I decided to use this item to do defense. Because I don't have Reese to do that. I try and use that. I don't think it really does anything. And then I ultimately decide to use Earthquake as my spell to go against her, because it's just such a quick spell. Even though right now I'm starting with the Lumina. Another thing I figure out as I go forward is I really need to draw an attack and then use my spell, which just, you know, makes this fight take a lot longer, but still that's the safe route to get through it. Otherwise, I'm going to be, you know, finishing a spell cast and then not be able to dodge out on time. And that's where I'm not drawing out the spell. Then I'm going to have to heal again. There's only so many times I'll be able to do that. Overall, though, once you learn that pattern of this fight, this was pretty easy. Although it took me a while to learn that pattern. I say how easy it is to learn the pattern while I'm still messing it up. So this is actually another pleasant surprise of the fight, though, that because it made you do something different for a boss fight. You know, this one-on-one thing was unique. I was actually anticipating Angela was the first one I got the class 4 item for, because she's the primary one I'm using, and I thought, why not make her strongest first? But of these 3 characters, she's the only one who had a one-on-one fight like this. I was kind of worried because I don't, my other characters aren't nearly as good as her, at least I don't feel like they are, so I was worried might be some tough battles, but you'll see soon that not only do I get the full party, so it makes those easier, but I also get class 4 Angela, so she can just mop the floor. Still some close calls on this with how much damage the Shadow Angela does. I mean, really, it'd only take two big spell casts to kill me. And there we go. Bye-bye, Angela. And hello, overpowered character with class 4. There you can see she's got her nice white garb.
What are you staring at, Hawkeye?
Class 4, you don't get a choice of going light or dark. It's whatever you chose for class 2. So she had to go light. That worked out fine. I mean, she was just trucking.
Rookies. This is Eagle's hidden treasure we're talking about? There's no way it's not tracked. If the target seems too good to be true, it probably is.
This treasure chest was a little bit easier to deal with than the Angela boss.
This thing is huge! Gee, thanks, Eagle. Sure didn't want anyone to touch this.
Here, I'm checking the weaknesses again. I don't really see anything, but at this point I've learned that my Lumino Plus, you know, Lucent Beam Plus is just gonna do a ton of damage. I suppose I say that and then I switch to Glitter Dust. Why don't I ever learn that lesson? Just spam Lucent Beam. At this point in the game too, though, so the class 4 thing, it makes it sort of, she doesn't have, no one can have a strength against her spells. There's guys who can still absorb a specific element, but they can't have a strength against it. So I can really just do my spamming of the Lucent Beam through the final dungeon on most guys. There's like this one type that just absorbs everything except for the non-elemental spells, and I still have to break, you know, guards with power attacks. But other than that, I just really, that last engine was a whole lot of Lucent Beam. I see my mana bar is barely moving. It's only costing me 4 piece at this point, which is less than the base price of the original cheap spell. Bye bye boss. So quick. It's just absurd, the power levels at this point. What's really sad is the witch boss, which is that last chapter before the hidden boss. I would say the hidden boss actually gave me a little bit more. It actually is still a bit stronger, but you would think that this witch that is in the thumbnail would be the hardest, or really close to it. We were fighting the bees and we're just spamming them out. Hoping I can finish this commentary here. I got my dogs starting to get riled up on me, so if you hear a dog bark in the background, I apologize. It's a long video to go through. I appreciate anyone watching through it. Reminder that there's the timestamps to be able to get back to specific bosses if you want to watch through it that way. I hope I wasn't too rambling with this too. I didn't have a script for this. Just thought I'd give my general thoughts as I played this and rewatched my my own boss battles. The final class 4 class strikes are really cool. Good looking too. And at this point you can probably get the all the little cactuses, which will give you this ring that lets you start every battle with 200% CP. You just constantly be spamming those. And you'll get some other things that are really powerful towards that end too. It would have been fun if the New Game Plus had everything geared up to your level, so it was actually challenging and you could have all your end game stuff for a new playthrough. I would have really appreciated that. But everything was its normal level when you do the New Game Plus, and that just made it so it was just so trivial. Just was not hard to do at all, and so I just gave up on that idea. But I will do another playthrough with other characters, so I can see some of the other storylines and just have a general different play style. I'm going to focus on a whole melee team. Now you can see all my guys are class 4. We're skipping past a several-hour dungeon, and here's the new chapter final boss, the witch.
Run after an invitation from such a distinguished lady?
This is really funny. After all the build-up and all the dungeon, having Angela here with her abilities is just a joke. But you'll get to see that. So, especially when you think back and you compare this to my wind boss fight, where I just barely snuck by with only Angela because I wasn't class 3 yet and didn't have good abilities and wasn't paying attention to the boss mechanics. Boom, boom. I think I finally learned my lesson by this point to just spam Lucent Beam.
So this is the witch. Her power is almost on par with the goddess of mana. Is this it?
Come on.
I mean, I know these other melee characters are supposed to be really powerful, particularly Kevin, but this is just absurd damage. It's hard for me to believe that anything can beat this. Even more so in her next phase, you'll see. It's just ridiculous. So I think her next phase is also, I think it's weak to the Lucent Beam. We'll see though. There we go. Phase 2. No, don't blink. This might be over too quickly. Just kidding, of course. It'll take a little bit more than a blink, but boom, boom, boom. Look at that damage. See this big snake? I mean, it's like weak to my light, and each of those little beams is all hitting. I also, at this point, have a item that makes it so, or an equipment item for Angela that she's immune to status effects. So, makes it really trivial. Just a little bit more on this guy. Reese, of course, doesn't have the no status effects thing at this point. I think I get one more of those before the final secret hidden boss, which is actually definitely is tougher than this boss. Not terribly with as powerful as my characters are, but still stronger. But Dragon Anise just is getting rocked. I saw some other video of someone else beating this boss and using melee characters, and it seemed to take much, much longer than this. This is why I'm questioning whether I could really beat it much faster as them. Although, I also found that Reese was a good support person because she had a bunch of passives to increase my damage, as well as the permanent boost in battle. So I may end up doing a team with her. Probably be Kevin as the main, Duran as a melee, and then Reese as melee. Here's the final boss, Black Rabite. Cute, but deadly. I wonder if this is a hidden reference to the bunny in Monty Python. I hope it is. I did actually fight this boss much earlier in the game on accident. So I did actually technically lose one more boss battle, but I really wasn't supposed to be there at the time, so I'm not really counting it as a real solid attempt. So this is my first go at him after beating Anise and being actually properly leveled. Right now I'm checking out the different weaknesses again, and what I find out is that he doesn't really have a good weakness for a different spell, but Explode is such a quick spell, I decided to do that. I do try and use that glitter dust there, but I find that it's just again too much time. So Explode it is. Though here, yeah, we'll have to focus on these little side things. This is going to be really important. But those other demons, they absorb the fire, so it heals them. So I will have to do ice for that guy. Let's see, we got some healing there. Now, if you beat the Black Rabite, you actually get a chain ability that you can equip that makes it so your spells cost 0 MP, which, considering this is the most difficult challenge in the game, you don't really need. But you can carry it over to New Game Plus. So let's say you want a really super trivial run where you can spam spells from the very beginning always. Well, that's how you'll do it. And the light side Angela, she gets all these mana saving things that help you be casting longer. Whereas the dark side Angela, she has stuff that takes health from people to do more damage, but doesn't have the good mana savers. So if you really wanted to be super, super strong, I suppose you could have a dark side Angela for the second playthrough. And with that, have the 0 MP cost from it. But it's so easy at that point, I don't know what the fun would be. It was nice, so at least they had this secret hidden boss to really test you out at the end. Oops, whiff. Only a little bit more, only about half left on this boss. This guy in particular, you have to really be sure to dodge his moves. I mean, so even though I'm really super powerful for this, at least it kept it to that stage where it's like you have to pay attention. You can't just spam a button and win. As you've noticed throughout, I didn't comment specifically when it happened, but like him jumping on me just flattens me and one-shots me. Yeah, it looks like my Hawkeye and my Angela are the ones that have the no status effects. These were random outings you got through rainbow seeds. That's another annoying thing at the final stages of this game is best equipment is all randomly obtained. Whereas throughout the leveling process in the normal story, you just go to the next town and you get the next set of best gear from every vendor. By now, I'm actually being smart enough to save my double slash to beat all the individual small things they have to focus on. Which was actually really important for this guy. He probably could have one-shot me there if I hadn't done it. But I'm going to use my class strikes of all my characters, finish them off. Good thing I saved one with Angela again. Would have been bad if I died right there. Considering the demon is weak to ice and the rabbit is neutral to both fire and ice, I probably could have just done ice for all of my spells to make myself easier on me, but the blast does look cooler too, I think. It's a good thing we're almost done with this video too. The dogs are really anxious for me to let them out and stop talking about it. While it's wrapping up, thanks for watching, and if you sticking around for this long video, I hope you enjoyed the commentary. I hope it wasn't too rambly. Hope you learned something about this game, but if you haven't yet got it, you definitely should get Trials Mana. It's a lot of fun. I also have a review on the channel if you want to listen to that. And check out my upcoming games list. There's some great AAA games all coming out for the Switch end of May and early June. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye, Rabbit.